Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. Elena Rosalind Michelle, and I want to share with you about a little story about Queen Esther. This is a story that you probably haven't heard. This is probably some of the things that you probably know, but yet you don't know. So, Queen Esther, it was said that her name was Hadassah, which means the myrtle tree. People think that she was just an orphan and didn't know where she come from, but instead, she knew the laws. She knew the Jewish law or the laws of Israel. And what you all don't know is that how God had used her, and knowing what her lineage is. Let me just tell you that when Josiah burnt documents, it burnt all the paperwork from the past of who the lineage, kind of like how we have the family trees and the ancestral lineage that we can follow. It's just like Josiah, when he knew that this line, this olive line, and this olive branch, this Hasmonean line, was supposed to be protected, he burnt everything and destroyed it, idols and all, because they're not supposed to have a graven image of what God is supposed to look like, because um the Messiah who comes is supposed to be protected. Okay, so that is why all of these laws were put in, is to protect this one person who's coming. Okay, so this girl who didn't know who she was actually the Hasmonean line. She was the line that God is using through the Messiah. Okay, the Messianic line, the missing link. Okay, so what's really interesting is that you have to also read the book of Susanna. Yeah, Susanna, and then Queen Esther, because they are parallel. But I do want to mention that there's two women of Babylon, that the first one that we talk about in the Bible is Rahab. Rahab is about the sun's family. When you take apart the name, is Ra, which is the sun god. But we can change it because of the sounds into the ray into the suns and the raising of the solar plexus, and how illuminating that sun SON is, and that Hab is habitants. In the Revelations, it talks about the habitants. If it talks about wide spaces or moving swiftly, it talks about how the messengers came to Rahab, and not just because she protected them from being found out, but also because she was a family member. And why I say this is that because when the two spies went in, they exited as messengers. Okay, and then when the king called Rahab, he didn't say told out harlot to come over, because you guys are so into using those words. He knew her by name. So when the king knows you by name, it means queenship. Okay, it means that she was queen there, but she was also Hasmonean line, a stranger in a strange land, right? And that's part of the pomegranate. The palm means aliens. It means illegal. That's where people get aliens. Granite is stone. It's hard. So it's like a stranger that has strength of a granite, and it was put into the pomegranate was put into the hymns of the priests, and also Jacob or Solomon's temple, the pillars had pomegranates around there, and which is seeds, this Jacob's seeds. So this seeds, two of them, Rahab and Susanna Esther, were of the line as well. So okay, so then when the spies came, and then I'll go into this again in a few days. So when they came in, they left as messengers. What was she supposed to do? She secured an oath, a promise, that her and her family would be safe, but not only her family, that the son's family would be safe. And then when it came and destroyed everything, everything was in destruction of Babylon, destruction, that they would not harm her if she would have that cord out there. It was like a signal or a symbol to not to enter that part of the house, and everything around the walls except for where she was at was demolished, but hers was sheltered and protected. Okay, so let's go into Susanna. Susanna is the 141. This is part of the 7 stars of the Revelation, because there's 2. We already know about the men. So we're going to tell you about the women. These are all sisters and based off the Pleides. And the Pleides or the Pleides, however you want to say. I say Pleides because, women... we're strong, right? So this, and they are in Taurus, which is the ox. So every time you think about the ox now, or the bull, you think about Taurus because it's about a time period. So Susanna the Lily, it says, has only been mentioned once, and so she's going to be our first star, and she is under the number 1 as leadership. So if you look in Luke chapter 8, verse 1, and it looks like it's through verse 8, it said, and it came to pass afterward that Jesus went throughout every city and village, preaching and showing the glad tidings of the kingdom of God. And the 12 were with him, and certain women which had been healed of evil spirits and infirmities, Mary called Magdalene, out of whom went 7 devils, and Joanna, the wife of Chuza, Herod's steward, and Susanna, and many others which ministered unto him of their substance. And when much people were gathered together and were come to him out of every city, he spoke of a parable. A sower went out to sow a seed, and he sowed some, and some fell on the wayside. It was trodden, and the fowls of the air devoured it. So we're looking at the names. So we're looking at verses, the 3rd verse. Joanna means God is gracious. Chusa means the seer prophet. Herod means a hero's ode or song. So it's like a victor would sing a song of victory, okay? Steward is one who's in charge of the household. And Susa, it means lily when you take apart Susanna. And Anna means grace and favor. So Susanna together also means lily. And then Anna is grace and favor. So now let's put this into context of what the meaning of the names. It says God is gracious. The wife or the woman of the seer or prophet. The hero's ode or song. The one who is in charge of the household. The lily of grace and favor. See, it has some, I'm getting goosebumps. It's just like when truth speaks out, then it makes sense. So it's just like, who's the wife? And it's talk about Mary called the Magdalene and how she was healed of it, and also of sowing the seed. So this is actually the time right now into March, and then now we're going into Aries. It's all about planting the seeds. Yeah, if you follow the how God put in the timetable for seasons. Okay, so then we go into when we read about the book of Esther, it says, let's review some of the signs. And it's like Esther in Persia means star. Azurus means prince, ruler, or chief of Israel. Shushan, Susa, means lily. So Shushan means Susa, and also means lily. Mordecai means warrior. Abihail, my father is my strength, or father of might. And Jair, he will lift up. So it says Esther 1-2. So that in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom. So Ahasuerus means prince. So when the king 1-1, okay? Sat on the throne of his kingdom, which is in Shushan. lilies into the lily's palace. Is like, isn't it interesting to see the king who is the chief of Israel sitting on his throne of his kingdom at the palace of Susa, which is the lily. Okay, another thing I want to let you know before we get too far in is that Aries, the stars and constellations of the sheep, was actually called the Lilium. So how we are getting into Aries now into the spring is about the lily. Yeah, it was named in the 1800s. It was called the Lilium constellation. So, yeah, very cool, isn't it? So it's like what we can learn from this book that is written after the queen saved her people and that the king started to learn about the laws of God. So, and when I wrote this, I went into thinking that Queen Esther had converted the king, but instead he found out that he was also the line of the Masonic temple, the Masonic leader as well, of the Hasmonean royalty. So then we go into the naming of the palace. The palace and cities are named after queens. So Susa in Persia, in the middle of, where is it? Asia, right in the middle. Is that where Babylon is down in Palestine? Is actually way over. So yeah, Babylon must have been a huge country at that time, and that Susa, where that city is, that is where the queen had presided and resided, and that the city was named after her. So when we read Esther 1:19, it says, "If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti came no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she." So this is about giving of land. This is a royal order that the beautiful queen has lost her reign and lets the king choose another queen. I find it interesting that the movement of God and how this opens the opportunity for Esther. A parentless child of God has the opportunity to be queen in a Gentile land while in captivity. So even though she didn't know that she was royalty, God had brought her in as royal. Okay. Because a lot of things start happening too. Is in Esther 2:5, it says, "Now in Shushan, right, the lily, the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the warrior, the son of Jair," right? And we have "he will lift up," the son who will lift up. And then goes into the Shimei, the Kish. Now the Benjamite means the son on the right hand, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity, and which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah. Judah is God will be praised, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. Mordecai, the warrior, is placed in captivity during the time of Nebuchadnezzar, and also from the line of Benjamin, the Masonic line. So even though she didn't know it, it was how everything was put together that at the perfect timing, she was coming into queenship. And then he brought up Hadassah, which Hadassah is the myrtle tree. That is Esther, his uncle's daughter. Okay, uncle's daughter. For she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, what warrior, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So now Esther is being taken care of a man. Okay, so how many times we say, "Oh, be careful of when you live with somebody that, oh, apparently you're having sex with that person." This is how men took care of their families. It has nothing to do with sex. Okay, so even if because somebody could construe it bad, and it's like, no, this is where she's being taken care of, she's being raised. And it doesn't place Mordecai as the same age as Esther. and at this time, okay? So we don't know exactly how much older than she is, and this would make them cousins, right? Okay, so yeah, cousins, not just uncle. Okay, so Esther 2:12, it says, now when every maid's turn was come to the king Ahasuerus, I wanted to look something up, prince, ruler, chief of Israel. After that, she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women. Of the purifications, 6 months of myrrh, and 6 months of the sweet odors, with other things for purifying of women. So, sweet odors, which is not just the myrrh. I always say with 6 months of the myrtle, the oil as well, but with the sweet smells. So with sanctification oil, that would have the cassia, would have the clove, would have the all those things. And why would she even know how to make that? Were there priests that were in Babylon at this time that were working, or did she learn that from the Bible and put this oil together? Okay, so it says sweet odors. So the sweet odors are the sanctification, that she was priest at this time, a priestess. So, and then she purified herself for 12 months, for a whole year. She went and purified. So when you're using oils, the Levites used during the purification process before going to the Lord in the tent of the meeting, in the Sinai desert, the Holy of Holies in the Solomon's temple. 12 months signifies not only the 12 tribes of Israel, but also the engagement process of the Jewish tradition where the bridegroom prepares his household for his bride. Hello! It's like King Ahasuerus prepares his bride. Okay, so you see the symbolism in it? So 12 months is the 12 months of all the constellations, that they're all represented by the 12 tribes, but she did it on the behalf of the 12 tribes. Esther 2:15, it says, now when the turn of Esther, Esther means star, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go unto the king. She required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all of them that looked upon her. She became a delight. She became favor. She became an Anna, grace and favor. Okay, so when we become a delight unto our Father, this is when God uses you. When you delight in the Lord, He will give you your heart's desire. Okay, this is Psalms 37:4. So we become a delight, and then this is when God starts using you and testing. Okay, so the testing period is like, okay, you believe that you're going to be the queen, and you shall be. Okay, and I really love how that kind of really worked into there. Okay, how often have we looked at this verse and we constantly remember what Esther was an orphan, but in fact, we knew her father's name. But if you were an orphan, would you know your father's name? If you're truly an orphan. So she wasn't really truly an orphan. It just meant that her parents were alive. And it says, wouldn't you also think that not only she had this earthly father, but also the heavenly Father? Because we look at God as Father. Okay, so this is what the meaning of the names are. The star, the daughter of my father, is my strength, the father of my might. The uncle, the father's brothers, he will light up the son of the warrior. He will light up son of the warrior. Warrior. It's like, wow. Okay, Esther 2, verse 17. The king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight, more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Okay, so of all the women, it's Proverbs 31. Okay, it's like above all women, right? The ruby. out of all the women, she is the powerful force to be reckoned with, that God has appointed her to be queen, not only because of her bloodline, but because the delight in the Father and going through this process, the testing process, is very significant above all women. She obtained grace and favor like Anna, Susanna, then made her the queen. So now you go into the book of Susanna. It's in the hidden apocrypha or the hidden scrolls. And we have Hakim, which is God will establish. So I'm not sure. Is in the book of Susanna, I think it's in the first chapter, it says, now Hakim, God will establish, was a great and rich man and had a fair garden joining into his house, and to him resorted, which means reorder, the Jews, because he was more honorable than all others. So this links it back to Esther 1 verse 4 and also Esther 8, 9 through 10. See the joining? So same person. God will establish a great rich man to reorder the Jews. Then in the 17th verse, it says, then she said to her maids, bring me oil and washing balls and shut the garden door so I may wash me. Susanna the lily uses oils to clean herself. So she knew how to use the oils. Priestess, okay? And this links it right back into Esther 2:12 and the purification process. So while she was going through her purification process, she was going through some kind of a testing, okay? And then it goes into, therefore, when she was led to be put to death, the Lord raised up the Holy Spirit of a young youth whose name was Daniel. Judgment of God, right? Okay, so what has happened here is that in the book of Susanna, she was cleaning herself in the garden, and these two men who bear false witness against her and said that, oh, come and have sex with me. Let's fornicate. Let's do this. She said no. Okay? No means no. And they went and said, oh, she did this and she did that. Okay? And Daniel came in to be judge. Okay, so why is Daniel in the book of Susanna, and we're linking Susanna with Queen Esther? Well, because Daniel was also Mordecai. Okay? So the judgment of God becomes warrior. So it's just like, it was interesting to note that Daniel is a young man here, which would be linked to Mordecai. And if he was a prophet who changed his name to a Persian name after he put his faith to action, this is the testing process. Therefore, Esther's name would have been changed to Susanna, and then from Susanna to Esther, and then Esther to Ether. Because when Susanna the lily, with grace and favor, is the star who ignites, who flames it up. Okay, so in conclusion, I kind of wanted to look at this before we go to the conclusion. So Esther's name would have been changed to Susanna, whom evil men wanted to defile and to kill her, but was brought back into good reputation. So this also has a lot to do with like the Mary Magdalene, when her reputation was restored back to her in 1969. All these things started happening. Okay, so we're coming into the 50th year of that. This is Jubilee for the woman. And then also I wanted to just touch on that there's so much more into Queen Esther, that she not only spoke on, she was the intercessor. She went and broke protocols. She broke traditional things that what you thought. So she broke religion. She broke laws of man to do what God wanted her to do, through testing, through prayers, through urgencies of her people. And she probably didn't even know that these people were her people until God says, these are your people. And she went and did this testing on behalf of her people. Okay, so this is how God works and puts prophets into action and priests into action, because yeah, we have gone through so many thousands of years and not knowing where we come from, but and that's where in the New Testament it says where you come from. Deep down, we know, you know, there is a law that is within us that we do follow, and that God will show and prove himself over and over to us that we are, the Messianic line. So this is, how this is bringing to me. And so it's like we're reminded about Purim. We're reminded of the casting of the lots and how, somebody wanted to put the people to death, that God says, I'm going to remember. Okay, so God remembers, and all the many enemies are destroyed from this. This is also prophecies, because the whole book of the Bible and ancient texts are all prophecies, again, to be fulfilled. So just kind of remember that as you're thinking about the prophecies of Queen Esther, that it's repeating. There's so many things that are repeating in twos and twos and twos. So Rahab and to Queen Esther. So look for it, because there's another Queen Esther out there. And we'll just continue to talk about that at a later time. And when you get to the roots and the truth, that the truth, who you are, who God has called you to be. But when God proves himself that you are, a certain person, or that you are to do different things on his behalf, that it has great benefit. So I am so glad I have proved myself to God. I don't have to prove myself to man. It says, show yourself approved to God and divide rightly the words. That's why we divide the words and find out what the meanings are. That don't keep your mind into, oh, that couldn't have happened. All things are possible. All things are possible and is possible. So the things that I have learned was telling of the 7 stars of Revelation. So she is the 141, and the 14th generation. And I'll do another video of the 14th generation next. So thank you for watching, and may you be blessed. May you be blessed that deep down that we are waiting for this beautiful woman who is coming, because it comes again. So thank you so much for watching, and please share. You never know, somebody else may need some liberation, especially amongst the women.